The Illinois EPA is required by law to make decisions based upon the technical merits of applications as outlined in applicable state and federal environmental regulations. Applications dealing with the groundwater monitoring program are reviewed by the Illinois EPA's Groundwater Assistance Unit. The following are three main criteria that the Groundwater Assistance Unit looks at closely during the review period before consideration of issuance of post-closure certification. 1, determine that all post-closure groundwater permit conditions are fulfilled. 2, determine that the groundwater wells adequately monitor groundwater flow conditions at the site. 3, determine that the groundwater quality at the site has not been impacted as a result of the facility.
Thank you, Greg. I'm going to go over the rules for those wishing to make comments this evening. Following that, the applicant will make a brief statement. As hearing officer, I intend to treat everyone here tonight with respect and ask that the same respect be shown to those raising relevant issues. You may disagree with or object to some of the statements and comments made tonight, but this is a public hearing and everyone has a right to express relevant comments on this application. Arguing or prolonged dialogue with either panel members or with members of the public is not permitted. Again, I remind everyone that we have a court reporter here making a verbatim record of tonight's hearing. For her sake, and in the interest of obtaining an accurate transcript of tonight's hearing, I ask that noise levels be kept to a minimum. In a similar light, applause, booing, hissing, and jeering are not permitted during this hearing. I remind everyone that I also do have the authority to end this hearing if things should get out of hand, and I will not hesitate to use that authority should the situation warrant. The focus of this hearing is quite narrow, and we have a very limited amount of time in which to conduct this hearing. I do not intend to allow irrelevant issues to be discussed during this hearing. Final action by the agency will be made based on requirements of existing laws and regulations and not upon how many people support or object to ending post-closure care. 35 Illinois Administrative Code 807.524C states the agency shall certify that post-closure care period has ended when it determines 1, that the post-closure care plan has been completed, and 2, that the site will not cause future violations of the Act or of Part 807. These two items lay out the crux of the decision to be made by the Illinois EPA in this matter. Again, relevant comments include completion of post-closure care, including groundwater monitoring issues and groundwater monitoring well locations, and other items that may indicate the possibility of future violations of the Act or Part 807. Comments that are not relevant to the hearing tonight include past violations of the Act at this site, composting issues, matters associated with closure of the landfill that did not impact post-closure of the landfill, and other issues unrelated to either the completion of the post-closure care or to potential or future violations of the environmental requirements from this site. You are not required to provide your comments orally. Again, written comments are given the same consideration and may be submitted to the Illinois EPA at any time within the public comment period, which ends just before midnight on December 9th, 2010. Although we will continue to accept comments through that night, tonight is the only time that we will accept oral comments. Any person who wishes to make oral comments may do so time permitting, as long as the statements are relevant to the application for completion of post-closure care action and the comments are not repetitious. If your comments fall outside the scope of this hearing, I may ask you to proceed to another issue. For the purpose of allowing everyone to have a chance to comment, I will allow everyone 3 minutes to make comments or statements. In addition, I'd like to stress that we want to avoid unnecessary repetition. If anyone before you has already presented a statement or comment that is contained in your comments, please skip over those issues when you speak. If anyone has already said what you wanted to say, when I call your name, you may pass. Once a point is made, it makes no difference if the point is made 100 times. It is not given any more weight simply because multiple people have said the same thing. Again, I point out that the final decision by the Illinois EPA in this matter will not be based upon public opinion. Final action by the agency will be made based upon compliance with the requirements of state laws and regulations and will not be impacted by the number of people who have an opinion one way or the other. Simply put, the final action in this matter depends solely upon the applicant meeting the two conditions of 35 Illinois Administrative Code 807.524C, which I read earlier. I point out that we are going to run things a little bit differently this evening so as to keep the hearing process moving. I will call the name of the first person to make comments this evening. That person should come forward to the microphone. I will then indicate the next person who will be making comments. The second speaker should come forward and sit in the designated chair right behind the podium. When the first person has completed their time at the microphone, the person sitting in the chair should move to the microphone and I will announce the name of the person that is to move into the chair. Should you decide that you no longer desire to speak, or if someone has already said what you wanted to say, please let me know when I call your name to come to the chair and I will move on to the next person. Hopefully we can keep this hearing moving and accommodate as many people as possible who wish to make comments this evening. When you come forward to the microphone, please state your name and, if applicable, any governmental body, organization, or association that you represent. If you are not representing a governmental body, an organization, or an association, you may simply indicate that you are a concerned citizen or a member of the public. For the benefit of the court reporter, please spell your last name. If your first name is spelled in an unusual manner, you may also choose to spell your first name. Once you start spelling your name, I will start timing you and you will have 3 minutes before I recognize the next speaker. I will hold up a sign when you have approximately 30 seconds left so that you can finish within the time limit. Those who have requested to speak will be called upon in the order that I will lay out based on the cards that I have before me. I point out that this hearing panel tonight will listen to the comments that are made tonight and will provide responses to all significant comments in writing in the responsiveness summary. We may also respond to a few of the comments this evening when they are made, but in the interest of staying within our time frames for the hearing, we will limit our comments to those that are absolutely necessary. Also, anyone making comments this evening can be questioned by any member of the hearing panel. Again, the time limit tonight is 3 minutes per person. Are there any questions on how we will conduct this hearing this evening? Okay, seeing that there are no hands raised, I'm going to allow the permit applicant to make a brief opening statement. Jim Cowhey, if you would come forward, and following Mr. Cowhey's statement, I will announce the first two speakers.
Good evening. My name is Jim Cowhey, C-O-W-H-E-Y, President of Land and Lakes Company. We welcome the opportunity this evening to make formal comments regarding our post-closure application for a closed facility in Buffalo Grove. First, I would like to remind the public that this facility has been closed for 15 years. Any questions raised tonight are merely to address our application to be removed from post-closure care. Further, it should be stated that this facility was monitored by the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency and the Lake County Health Department during its life cycle and post-closure period. This is a normal procedure for all facilities. Further, this post-closure application to be removed from post-closure care is also a normal procedure. Land and Lake staff and its expert consultants will provide all technical information to the Illinois EPA in the permit application process. Unfortunately, a number of false allegations regarding this facility have been made by a politically motivated individual. We have chosen not to respond publicly to many of these false allegations simply because they were clearly intended to further an individual's personal agenda. We have, however, always taken our operating record very seriously, and we have followed the regulatory framework for this facility. Further, we reserve our right to pursue all legal remedies to defend our reputation and operating record. We would also like to emphasize our strong commitment to develop this property. It has always been our main goal to develop this property into a prime retail development, and we work diligently with Buffalo Grove for over 7 years to do just that. In fact, the property was scrutinized by the various Village Grove boards and commissions for over 3 years. These boards and commissioners and the village trustees voted unanimously to support this project. This property consists of approximately 60 acres, which can be developed into over 1.5 million square feet of retail space. Hundreds of new jobs will be created from the development alone. Hundreds of thousands of dollars will be raised each year for Buffalo Grove through sales tax revenue. Millions of dollars in new infrastructure will be added to the community as improvements paid for by the developing companies. This is an extremely significant project that should not be delayed. We support the efforts of the IEPA to answer any final technical concerns and look forward to working with Buffalo Grove on further development of this property. Thank you. I'd like to submit the comments.
Sure. I'll go ahead and enter them in the record. Thank you. Okay, the first speaker this evening, and I hope I say this right, is it Gina Newkirch? If she would come forward to the podium, and if Frank Ladonne, is it, or Ladon, if you would take a seat in the chair behind her, you'll be speaking following. If you'd go ahead and state your name and spell your last name for the record, thank you.
Yes, good evening. My name is Gita Newkirk. I'll spell both names. First name is G-H-I-D-A. Last name is N-E-U-K-I-R-C-H. I'm the Deputy Manager and I'm representing the Village of Buffalo Grove this evening. The purpose of the Village's comments is to provide for the record a brief history of the Village's efforts to annex the Land and Lakes property. The purpose is also to provide an overview of the zoning status and Village's interest in the property. In 2004, the Village of Buffalo Grove, in coordination with the Buffalo Grove Park District, began analysis of potential acquisition of the Land and Lakes No. 5 wheeling facility on Milwaukee Avenue for a possible joint venture. On February 28, 2005, at the recommendation of Village senior staff, the Village's corporate authorities approved the engagement of professional engineering services with Shaw Environmental to evaluate the environmental issues for the subject property. The Village of Buffalo Grove was interested in evaluating the public environmental record for the Land and Lakes facility prior to annexation and possible acquisition. On June 28, 2005, Martin Fallon, geologist representing Shaw Environmental, provided the Village of Buffalo Grove their preliminary report. The report did not include any on-site testing. Their research was based on a review of records primarily provided by the Environmental Protection Agency. The environmental evaluation was voluntarily terminated by the Village in 2005. After due and careful consideration, on June 2, 2008, by a vote of 5-0, the Village's corporate authorities approved the annexation of the Land and Lakes property. This annexation was the result of more than 10 years of coordination and communication among Village staff and Land and Lakes property owners and representatives. Devin Moose, Director of Shaw Environmental, provided a letter dated September 23, 2010 to Dane Bragg, Village Manager of the Village of Buffalo Grove. The letter references the 2005 preliminary report as, quote, tentative and incomplete, unquote. Mr. Moose further stated that, quote, it is inappropriate for anyone to be using it to develop conclusions regarding the facility or on the health and safety of the public, unquote. As part of the annexation, the Village worked with Land and Lakes and divided the subject property into 3 distinctive parcels for zoning purposes. The Village's goal for this property is to attain a high-quality commercial development. This property has been promoted for quality commercial development by the Village of Buffalo Grove as part of its economic development initiative for several years. The Village of Buffalo Grove urges the Illinois EPA to approve the application for certification of post-closure completion subject to compliance with environmental regulations promulgated by the department in order to proceed with the development of the property.